If you're trying to be someone else, the best you can hope for is second place. I saw that quote on some random Instagram motivation page with a generic scenic nature background, and usually that kind of BS motivational fluff is the stuff I just scroll right past, but this one got me. The full quote was, "If you're trying to be someone else, the best you can hope for is second place, so just be yourself." And I love this because there's so much noise out there trying to show you the quote-unquote right way to be, the right way to live, trying to convince you to be like someone else or something else, to live up to some standard, as if there were one right way. But what if the real battle is simply with the very idea of who you think you should or need to be? Welcome to Change Made Easy. Changing your habits, routines, and behaviors is hard. We make it easy. I'm Paul, and I help anyone who's stuck, stagnant, or burned out in life to create positive change that lasts for good. It's that easy. Teddy Roosevelt said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." And that quote gets thrown around a lot these days. And it's probable that when you hear it, your mind goes immediately to social media, because it's often stated that apps like Instagram and TikTok can skew your view of reality, as you're always seeing someone else's highlight reel, and you start to wonder why your everyday life doesn't match up to what everyone else is posting. They're so skinny, they're so fit, they're so rich, they're always on vacation. And this comparison is where a lot of our collective unhappiness and discontent comes from as a society. But today, I'm going to tell you about another form of comparison that's even more devious, your comparison to yourself. And I'll explain why something that seems innocent, like having high standards for your future, can actually be holding you back from creating lasting, positive change. There's no doubt that you've heard the phrase I used in the intro, comparison is a thief of joy. But if something is stealing your joy, why would you let it? And if it were that simple, why not just turn it off? Well, let's be honest. Comparison isn't just something that we fall into accidentally. It's something our culture and society is actively priming us to do every day. Think about how much of our world is built around ranking and measuring. Social media is engineered to show us everyone else's best moments while ignoring the messy reality. Workplaces incentivize competition, whether through promotions, performance reviews, or bonuses. Even in your personal life, there's space for comparison. Our homes, vacations, even parenting choices are all under a microscope to be judged by everyone. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that Roosevelt was right. When we compare ourselves to others, it often leads to negative feelings. But the challenge is that in the short term, that comparison can actually feel rewarding. Because every time you compare yourself, you're triggering a specific psychological phenomenon. Social comparison theory says that when you evaluate your own worth based on how you stack up against others, sometimes you come out on top, in which case your ego gets a little boost. Think about the last time someone asked you for help at work with something that they couldn't figure out, but you find easy. You literally feel a sense of accomplishment and even superiority when you think, yeah, that's cool. I know more than that. They need me for help. Comparison can also come in when you see a video of someone on social media doing a cool new workout that you've never tried, and you go, I'm going to try that. You're literally in that moment deriving motivation from comparison. So comparison like this might be positive. It creates an immediate reward, and it gives you a hit of dopamine that makes you feel a positive emotion, at least in the moment. And sometimes it drives motivation, which can be good. Done enough times, this can even create a positive habit. Hey, 1 second before we continue. If you're enjoying this episode, if you're learning something from this show, if you're catching yourself saying, man, this is so helpful, this Paul guy is pretty smart. First of all, thank you. But secondly, if that is you, you might have asked, how can I work with Paul? Can he help me create the change I've been looking for? And if you have, you're in luck. Because after 12 years as a coach, both in person and online, for the first time ever, I'm opening up my calendar specifically to talk to you, my podcast listener. Use the link in the show notes to book a completely free coaching session. If you need help with nutrition, fitness, motivation, mindset, basically anything that goes into building your happy, healthy life, then I want to talk to you. Click the link in the show notes and let's chat. I created this podcast to help, and now I want to go deeper. This is the first time I've ever offered anything like this, and I don't know how long it'll last or how long I'll be able to keep doing it, so take advantage while you can. All right, now let's get back to the show. All of this, in theory, is not the worst thing. The issue is in our new modern society that, once again, our evolutionary mind has not caught up with. We have too many opportunities to compare. From social media to working in an office to seeing more people because we drive in cars and we have the internet. We've learned, both explicitly and implicitly, to derive so much of our validation from what goes on and how we compare ourselves to others. But the problem is, although it could theoretically be positive, that positive feedback loop actually really isn't all that positive in the long run. It's more of a bait and switch, because over time, comparison erodes your self-esteem, your focus, and your happiness. And all of those theoretical potential benefits are no match for the host of negative things that come from constant comparison. And I'll just name a few here, because there are a lot of negative outcomes that come from constantly comparing ourselves to others. So for one, comparison creates a moving goalpost. Every time you compare yourself to someone else, you create a new standard that you have to live up to. You might feel good for a moment, but there's always someone out there that's better or something more to achieve. You're literally running a race with no finish line. It also distances you from your own values. So instead of focusing on what actually matters to you, comparison shifts your focus outward. You start chasing goals or trying to live up to standards that aren't yours and don't even align with who you are or what you care about. And then potentially the most important to me is that it fosters chronic dissatisfaction. The more you compare, the more you focus on what you don't have or what you aren't. And this continual highlighting a state of lack train your brains to focus on deficits rather than strengths, which keeps you stuck in a cycle of feeling less than. And as I said, that's just to name a few, but you can probably see why this is less than ideal. When comparison becomes your default, it's easy to lose sight of who you are. You're no longer striving to be the best version of yourself. You're striving to match or to beat someone else's highlight reel, or to live up to a version of yourself that doesn't account for the realities of your current life. You're comparing yourself to another mom or another dad, but they have a different set of responsibilities. They have a different job. They have a different life. And that's why comparison is so dangerous. It can feel productive in the short term, but ultimately it disconnects you from your joy, your authenticity, and your self-acceptance. So comparison is insidious, but you probably already knew that. Here's the twist. The real, insidious, devious, most harmful type of comparison, it is not comparison to social media or the guy or the girl in the office down the hall. It is comparison to yourself. This might sound strange, but there are 2 times that you compare yourself to yourself that I bet, if you're doing this too often, are holding you back from achieving your goals and creating positive change. And it's when you compare yourself to your past and when you compare yourself to your future. So when you compare yourself to a past version of yourself, you when you were 20, you when you were in college, when you were single, when you had more money, when you had a different job, when you didn't have kids. But the thing is, that's a past version of you. It's a memory. It doesn't exist anymore. Even if it was true then, however long ago, it's not true today. And clinging to it is like trying to wear clothes that don't fit anymore. It can be uncomfortable and it's restrictive. And then you're comparing yourself to a future version of you. That's when you get that vision board picture in your head of the job that you want to have, the body that you want to have, the thing that you want to build. It feels motivational. But since the future hasn't happened, it's a fake, fictionalized version of yourself. In reality, it's a fantasy, and it's not real. And again, it's an idealized version of you. And when you're making that fictional version of yourself, when you're dreaming up your dream life, it doesn't account for the real complexities of life. It doesn't account for your unique circumstances or just being a human. It's an avatar of perfection, and striving to live up to it can actually lead you to become burned out and demotivated and feel like a failure because you cannot possibly live up to a perfect imagined version of yourself. And this is why it's not just comparison to others, but also to yourself that robs you of joy. It pulls you out of the present moment and makes you feel like you're less than, either less than you used to be or less than you could be. But neither of those things are real. You are only who you are today, what you are today. So what's the alternative? Well, the alternative is living with authenticity. Not just in the be yourself, Instagram, motivational quote kind of way, but in a real, actionable way. So here are 3 steps to break you out of this cycle of comparison and reconnect you with your authentic self. So number 1, acknowledge where you are right now. Start by asking yourself, who am I today? Not who you were last year, not who you think you should be tomorrow, just today. What's realistic and achievable for the person that you are right now, with your current limits, with your current responsibilities, with your current workload? Who do you want to be with all of that taken into account? Step 2 is redefine success. Instead of measuring yourself against the past or the future or someone else, define success by your own standards. What matters the most to you, again, right now? Because that might be different than it was 5 years ago, and it will probably be different than it will be 5 years from now. Maybe today it's peace. Maybe it's consistency. Maybe just showing up for yourself today is enough to count as a win. And then you need to celebrate those small wins. Joy is not found in these big monumental transformations. We think that it is, but it's really the small moments every day that bring us that happiness, that joy, that contentment. Did you show up for yourself today? Did you put in your best effort? Did you make even one small choice that aligns with your values? If you did, that's something worth celebrating. Because too much comparison holds you back. But as I mentioned earlier, some comparison can be beneficial if it's a tool that's used properly. So who do you compare yourself to? You right now. It means analyze your current situation, not as it should be, but as it is. And then make a decision. Is this in line with your standards? Is this in line with your values and who you want to be? And if not, then you can decide to take action on it to start to change it. This is not a value judgment. It doesn't mean you're bad or you've been wrong or you've messed up or anything else. It's just saying that you want something different than what you have right now. And that's okay. That's how you grow. One of my clients, let's call her Sarah, really struggled with this. She kept comparing herself to her pre-kid self, the person who had time to work out 5 days a week, cook every meal from scratch, and still have energy left over. But I said to her, that version of you was amazing, and that's great. But that's not you anymore. You are you with kids, with less time. And that's fine too, because this version of you is also amazing. One is not better or worse. Now is just different. You are not less because your circumstances have changed. You are just a different version of you, and that's enough. But if you want to succeed, you have to look at your current restraints and your current abilities and your real life, not live in a falsified fantasy version of what you used to be or could be. And then when Sarah started focusing on what she could realistically do today, instead of what she used to be able to do, everything changed. She was no longer chasing a ghost of her past. She was living in the present. So if you're ready to break out of the comparison trap, remember that it's not just comparing yourself to others that will keep you stuck. Catch yourself when you're comparing yourself to your past self or an idealized, before you go, I want to talk to you. Literally. For the first time ever in over 12 years as a coach and 4 years doing this podcast, I'm opening up my schedule to help listeners like you for free. I'm offering a free coaching session to you as a thank you for supporting this show. I help people create their healthy habits and happy lives and create positive change around their health, wealth, and relationships. Whatever you're working on, mind, body, and soul, we can cover it all. If you're struggling, I want to help you build a plan to get through it and past it. So go into the show notes and click the link that says book a free call today. I don't know how long I'll be able to keep doing this, and my schedule will fill up. So if you want to take advantage, make it happen ASAP. Version of your future self. And if you want to stop that pattern, acknowledge where you are now, redefine success, and celebrate small wins to focus yourself on the current moment, because that is what you have control over. Remember the quote this all started with. If you're trying to be someone else, even an imagined version of yourself, the best you can be is second place. But when you embrace who you are right now, that's when you become unstoppable. Let go of the comparisons. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be better than Stan down the block or Susie down the hall. You don't have to be a better parent than anyone else. You don't have to compare to your past self or your future self. You just have to be you today. That is change made easy.